Hello viewer, it's time to put beams up in the air, and first task is to cut the plywood there into a couple of little shims to go on the sides of the arbaletriers to keep the beams equally spaced as they go across the cavity. I'll cut those and then we'll raise the beams, put the shims behind, drill through, bolt, see what happens. So what we've got, this beam goes up to the green line. We've got a shim either side which goes behind, sandwiched between the beam and the arbaletrier. We'll put it up, put it on its little resting jack, and then we'll pull the other beam up on the other side on a resting jack, hold that in place. If I can get some clamps to hold them tight against the arbaletrier before I drill them, then I'll put clamps on as well, but might not be able to do that. Just got to move the hop up, and then we go. Right. let me show you what we've just achieved. So, we have bolts that go through the beam. It's a 16mm bolt, and we've got the line underneath it, which is the laser level. So long as we keep the underneath exactly flush with that, which if I took you up there, it would be, then on the top of the two beams, I measured across with the level to make sure that, the spirit level, to make sure that it was, that both beams, joists, whatever, were exactly level with each other. So this whole joist is exactly level acrossways as well as to each other. And we have a bolt at the far end over there as well. And that's exactly the same as we did over here and over here. Now, when it comes to the center point, you can see that I've marked the center point here, and that center point is where the center joist hanger needs to go at the bottom of the joist. And that joist hanger has to be absolutely flush, so we can't put a whacking great big bolt through there. What we'll do is we'll get some 10 or 12mm coach bolts and recess them at that center level so that they're flush with the surface. And then when we put the joist hanger on, the joist can quite happily slot into position without fouling with the coach bolt. So we'll do one this side, one the other side, and the same thing here, a recessed one on both sides. And then that means we've got 3 strong fixings into strong oak, ponçon, and arbaletrier, and then we can start putting on the joist hangers. Right. So what we did before was to put these beams up with a 16mm bolt either side into the, or through the arbaletrier. But for the poinçon, the king post, the center position, which is ideal for putting in a bolt, coincides with where we need to put the joist hanger. So in order to put the joist hanger there, we don't want a bolt there. So what we're going to do is put a recessed coach bolt. So we're going to put a recessed hole here so that the head will be below the surface of the wood and the joist hanger won't be affected at all. That's the idea. So first we'll do a recess. A little bit more. Next, we have a 12mm drill, because the coach bolt is 12mm. So the shank of it, we don't really want to get binding on this piece of wood. We want it to bite into the poinçon, the king post. So this means 12mm, it'll quite happily just go straight through this piece of wood and bite into the next one, because we'll do a 10mm into the next one. 12 mil, 10 mil. Just to make sure it's deep enough. So because the head needs to be below the surface, that hole needs to be deeper than the entire bolt, which is by about 3 mil. So that's through the wood, and it's now biting into the king post. Never mind. So that's below the surface, nicely embedded. That can go on there very happily. All the nails can go into the holes, and when the joist comes down here, it's not going to foul with a bolt. So that's exactly what we want. Just got to do the rest now. You don't have to wash. Right, so the beam which is going to go across here to hold all the joist hangers for this side, there are precious few stones that are fat enough to take an anchor to go into the wall. I want to put 4 in. I think that's sensible. But some of these stones are just so thin, if I drill a 16 mil hole into it, the stone is probably going to crack and it probably won't be very, very secure. So Callum suggested, why not put one underneath? Nice big stone here. So I've got a piece of offcut here, which we can put underneath. That's the bottom line of the joist which goes across. So this will be a good strong anchor because that's a good solid piece of stone, granite. So I'm just going to drill a hole in here, suitable for a 16 mil anchor bolt. That will then go through the piece of wood. That'll be into the wall, bolt it on the end, and that should then be a nice solid support for the beam to rest on top of. Then 3 or 4 other fixings, however good or bad they are, they'll help, but this will be a good support for it anyway. So, you know, belt and braces. We may well do another one of these further down there, just to be on the absolute safe side. So I'm going to go and drill a hole now. So I've gone through the stone. Okay, so it's going in probably about 12 centimetres. The documentation which came with this roll bolt from Fisher, the documentation says it needs to go in at least 80, so that's good. Problem is, so I now need to hammer this in so that it's at least 120 mil into the wall, more or less. From there up to about there. So we have a bit of green tape which shows me the depth of the hole as it is. If I start nailing that in, if it goes to the green line, that's great, I've got to the bottom of it. But if it snags part way in, I can measure from there down to see how close to 80 mil into the wall I've got, because I want 80 millimeters at least in the wall. Amazingly, that top is exactly where my line is. That's luck rather than judgment. Okay. Somewhere I've left the bolt, the nut and the washer. They were there? Yeah. Oh, great. My glamorous assistant. Yeah. Thank you, Callum. That's not going anywhere. So the way that those roll bolts work is that once you've pushed the sliding sleeve over the wedge at the end, you've pushed it all into the hole, you then tighten the bolt and the bolt pulls the wedge into the sleeve and absolutely crams it onto the inside of the stone there. So that absolutely isn't going to move. Job done. That's successful. We've got the joist up against the stone wall there. It's resting on a wooden piece at that corner, which is fixed into a good solid stone. As we come across, it's got one more fixing into a good solid stone, another fixing into a solid stone, and then a fixing onto a wooden bit on a good solid stone. So you've got 4 fixings there that it's resting on. 16 mil roll bolts or Fisher bolts. So that's all working nicely. And these other joists that we've got, so they come in pairs either side of the ponçon, the king post, and either side of the arbaletrier at either side. Again, you've got 16 mil bolts going through those, except for the centers where they've got 12 mil anchor coach bolts which go into the king post, into the poinçon. And that works the same over here. So those are all in position. That means that the next task is nailing quite a lot of joist hangers up. And then once the joist hangers are all along here and along there, we can put the joists across or cut the joists to go across in that direction.